Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Mr. Payne bringing you final exam review number 6, I believe. Statistical data and statistical graphs. So this is a really good unit that is asked a lot of questions on the Regents exam. So let's start talking with and about the measures of central tendency, the mean, the median, the mode, the range, the standard deviation. The mean, another word for mean is the average. So you may want to underline that word there, the average. And it's when you add up all the numbers, get an answer, divide the number by the number of data pieces. If you want to use your calculator when you hit stat calc 1, you're looking for the x with the bar on it. That is your mean. The median is your Q2, is the middle number. After you put the data in order. Now, once again, you can find this on your calculator, which is your Q2 or your median when you hit stat calc 1. But if you're calculating it by hand, make sure that you put the data in order first, then find the middle number. Mode. I say that this is not the calculator. The numbers appear as the most often. And how I remember it is MO for mode, MO for most. MO, most often. MO, most often. Your range is when you take your max number and you subtract it from your min. So your max minus your min. Your standard deviation, this is your population, whole population standard deviation. Okay, and that's a fancy little O there, the O of X. And what that does is that it measures the measure of how spread out your data is. And you can also find this in your calculator by stat calc 1. It gives you this population standard deviation. It also gives you the sample standard deviation. Remember that the symbol for sample standard deviation is S of X. Okay, so which is once again the measure of how spread out your data is. Now let's talk about finding the measures of central tendency in your calculator without a frequency table. So what we want to do is hit stat enter. Hit stat enter. And then you're going to enter all the numbers in under L1 by hitting the down button. Hit stat calc 1, enter to get all the values needed, and you must scroll down for the min, the Q1, the median, the Q3, and the max. Don't forget this arrow right here. When you see this arrow, that means that you're going to arrow over to the calc part on your calculator. So it's stat calc 1, enter, 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 enter. The next part is we're going to hit stat enter, enter all the numbers under L1 by hitting the down button, then the frequency under L2. When you have, and this is different because it's with a frequency table, okay, and we don't often calculate all that stuff with the frequency table. We're normally just given a list. So this is with, let's back up. The first one here is with a list of numbers. The second one is with the frequency table, and we're talking about entering two pieces of data, L1 and L2. Then you're going to hit in your calculator stat calc 1 on your calculator. But we have to make sure that it's L1 and L2 highlighted, and then hit enter in your calculator to get all the values needed. and you must scroll down for min, Q1, median, Q3, and max once again. Like I said, this second box here, not too often that we're using two sets of data, the L1 and the L2 of lists, to calculate both of those. So we'll have to be aware of that and see if there's any good examples in the next page that we would have to use that with. Alright, the types of graphs and plots. This is very frequently asked and to ask you analyze or to have you create. So let's make sure we know what each one of these are. The first one is a box plot. In the box plot, you have your lowest value, which is also known as your min. You have your lower quartile, which is also known as your Q1. Your median, which is your Q2. Your upper quartile, which is Q3. And your highest value, which is known as your max. Your interquartile range, very good word for you there. It's this area right in here. It's from your box, right? That's your Q3 minus your Q1. If you remember what your range is, it's your max minus your min from the first page. What do these feature? Well, it's a number line with all the values from your min to your max. It has 5 special points. Those points are exactly what I identified out from you, and it's your 5 key points that you would look up on your calculator. It is your min, it is your Q1, it is your median, it is your Q3, and it is your max. Those are the 5 major points that you analyze in your box plot. The next point is your scatter plot. Your scatter plot is your bivariate data plot. It has 2 axes labeled with the appropriate scales, all data points plotted and not connected. What your scatter plot allows for you to do is it talks to you about your correlation and if there's a causation or not. So in this case, this is a very strong positive correlation. What I drew in red is called your line of best fit. Those are key things that you want to remember when talking about scatter plots. Dot plot is your third one. Your dot plot is just a way to analyze some data. One number line with all data points labeled to include the min and the max. Place a dot above each data point numbered. So in this case, number of books. If there's 1 books read last summer. So how many people read 1 book? Well, you would count up the dots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 people read 1 book. With using dot plots and analyzing dot plots, it's really important that you read the title and that you read the titles of the axes as well. So make sure you're reading all labels so that you know what you're analyzing. And the last one is a histogram, a touching bar graph with both axes labeled and evenly spaced number lines to include the min and the max. As you can tell, in this case, there is no break, and there was no break needed, obviously, in the data. Pay attention if they ask you to graph a histogram on the final exam. Make sure that you use a break if it is needed. The other feature, like it says right here, that it's a touching bar graph. No spaces. Okay? Those are the major keys we're talking about when we're talking statistical data and statistical graphs. Make sure you use this sheet to complete the rest of the questions on the back. See you in class.